Good morning, students. We just started learning group 17 element that are fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine and astatine. That we just have learned about the general introduction of this halogen group, as well as we just learned the laboratory preparation of this chlorine gas. So in this we are going to learn about what are the other methods to prepare this chlorine gas, as well as the physical properties and chemical properties of this chlorine. Manufacture of chlorine. There are two methods to manufacture chlorine. One method is called as electrolytic process. The other method is called as Deacon's process. So the electrolytic process here, a solution of brine is taken. A solution of brine or brine water, that's nothing but a water which is strongly impregnated with salt, or just blindly we can say it's a salt water. And salt water we will obtain either from the sea water, either we can take it as a sea water, or else some underground water which is near seashore. So those waters are, we can call it as a brine water. So those brine water we are going to do the electrolysis process. So when we take a brine into a container, electrolytic cell, that is sodium chloride solution. Solution means NaCl having the water molecule, where there will be a cathode as well as anode in a container. When the electricity is passed, automatically you know that sodium chloride will ionize into Na plus and Cl minus. Likewise, the water molecule present in that will get into H plus plus OH minus. When it ionizes, there are 4 ions obtained in that. Na plus and OH minus will join and get converted into sodium hydroxide. Now the solution become alkaline, where the remaining 2 ions are present in the solution. One is H plus, the other one is Cl minus. You know that opposite charge attract each other. H plus will migrate towards the cathode and Cl minus will migrate towards the anode. You know that at anode always oxidation takes place. Oxidation means loss of electron. So Cl minus migrate towards the anode and it loses the electron. Cl minus lost the electron and it get converted into chlorine. Then the 2 chlorine atom join and it get converted into chlorine gas. So at anode the chlorine gas will be getting liberated. But the H plus ion migrated towards the cathode, where the reduction takes place. The reduction is nothing but gain of electron. It gains electron and get converted into H, and H and H join to get converted into hydrogen. So there at cathode hydrogen gas is getting liberated, at anode chlorine gas is liberated. So by this process we can able to prepare the chlorine gas, and the process is called as electrolytic process. Second method of manufacturing chlorine gas is Deacon's process. In this process, mixture of air and hydrochloric acid. So air, oxygen and hydrochloric acid will be mixed and it will be passed over a series of chamber. There will be chambers continuously present. In that air will be passed into. Along with that, pumice stone. Pumice stone, it is nothing but a silica, a compound. It's a stone of silica SiO2 as well as alumina Al2O3 and some calcium, potassium, all those things will be present, but it is highly porous. By seeing the picture you can look at that there are small pores are there. So along with this mixture, hydrochloric acid and oxygen, this pumice stone with cuprous chloride, because here cuprous chloride is acting as a catalyst. Formula is Cu2Cl2. So when these thing, that is pumice stone along with the cuprous chloride, is passed inside this container, mixed inside the container, this HCl and oxygen react and the temperature maintained is 400 degrees Celsius. It get converted into water molecule as well as the chlorine gas. But the mechanism, actually this is a single step process, but actually you know that a catalyst does not take part in a reaction. Instead it will increase the rate of a reaction. So what is the use of this catalyst? How does it react, or how does it behave inside this container? Let's see. That's what the mechanism explained below. The first here we have taken hydrochloric acid and oxygen in the presence of those catalyst, but The first is the catalyst will combine with the one of the reactant, that is oxygen gas. When it combined with oxygen gas, you are getting the product called to be cuprous oxychloride. After this cuprous oxychloride is formed, it combined with the other reactant, that is hydrochloric acid, and get converted into the product called to be cupric chloride is obtained. After getting this cupric chloride will decompose to give you the catalyst getting back. The catalyst can be regenerated in all the reactions. Whatever catalyst you have added, whatever amount you have added, all those things you can get it back. This will be regenerated, but the chlorine gas which we are expecting can be obtained, and the water molecule along the water molecule. This is a single step reaction, and this is how this catalyst taking part in that reaction was explained by using this three steps. Let us see about its physical properties. The first, it is a greenish yellow gas with a pungent irritating odor. You can look at this. So there are the chlorine gas. Look at this picture. This is chlorine leakage or chlorine test. So here it is a greenish yellow gas and it will irritate. The smell will be irritating. Second, it produces headache when it is inhaled even in small quantities, whereas the inhalation of large quantity could be fatal. It can lead to death. So when a small amount or a little amount, when you inhale it, it may leads to headache. If it is further increased, so it could increase the fatality. Next, it is 2.5 times heavier than air, it seems. The next, it's soluble in water. So you all know, because chlorinated water, we know that. So it is soluble in water and solution is referred as chlorine water. It deposits greenish yellow crystal of chlorine hydrate. So with the water at a particular temperature, it gets converted into Cl2.8H2O. So look at this picture. It's a greenish yellow crystal of this chlorine hydrate. Can be converted into liquid. Now this is the chlorine liquid and this is chlorine solid. So at a particular temperature it can get converted into the liquid, as well as it can be converted into the crystalline solid. Chemical properties of chlorine. First, action with metals. It reacts with metal as well as non-metal. Let's see what are the metals does it react and what will be the product. Here with the sodium, it reacts to give you sodium chloride. You know the symbol of sodium, Na, as well as its oxidation number +1, so the formula become NaCl, and it reacts with iron, Fe plus Cl to give you ferric chloride. You know iron has two oxidation number +2 as well as +3. Here in that FeCl3, so the oxidation number is said to be +3 in this case, so you are getting the formula ferric chloride, FeCl3. Another one, aluminium. With aluminium it reacts to give you aluminium chloride. Aluminium oxidation number is +3, the product is AlCl3. The other one is with the copper, and copper plus Cl2 you are getting CuCl2. So here the copper oxidation number, you know, chlorine oxidation number is -1, so that -1 came here. Copper, its oxidation number, you know, it has two oxidation number +1 and +2. If it is +1, we call it as cuprous. Here it is 2 because CuCl2 we are getting, so here +2 we used, so this is cupric chloride is obtained. So sodium, iron, aluminium and copper reacts to give you the respective metallic halide. Next, about the action with the non-metal. What are the non-metal does it reacts? Let's see that. With the hydrogen it reacts to give you hydrogen chloride, where the enthalpy change, the heat released is called to be -44 kilocalories, that is minus, so it is exothermic reaction. Then with the boron you are getting boron trichloride, and then with the sulfur you are getting the product called to be sulfur dichloride or disulfur dichloride. The name is disulfur dichloride. The other one with the phosphorus, you know, PCl3, you know, either you will get to depend upon the amount of chlorine used, it could be phosphorus trichloride or else phosphorus pentachloride. So here just phosphorus trichloride is mentioned. Then with arsenic, the product is arsenic chloride, and with antimony you are getting the product is SbCl. Affinity for hydrogen. This chlorine, when it is burned with turpentine, the formula for turpentine is C10H16, which is obtained from the pine wood. So it can be either called as a turpentine or turpentine oil. So when chlorine is treated with turpentine, that is it's a hydrocarbon, C10H16, it gets converted into carbon and hydrochloric acid. The meanwhile, when this chlorine is treated with water, it give you the product called to be that is oxygen gas, dioxin as well as hydrochloric acid. Next, how this chlorine reacts with ammonia, what would be the product? The same thing. This reaction already you have studied in page number 60, the same lesson. Under the chemical property of ammonia, we have learned. So let's see. When we add excess ammonia into this chlorine, it gets converted into nitrogen gas. So the next, this hydrochloric acid, one of the byproduct formed in that, again react with ammonia to get converted into ammonium chloride. Now you are going to sum up these reactions. So you will get the overall reaction will be here this ammonia, 2 ammonia and 6 ammonia. So I can make it as 8. I am going to add these two, so I'll get 8 ammonia and the 6 HCl and that 6 HCl. Reactant side 6 HCl, product side 6 HCl get cancelled, and here 3 chlorine gives nitrogen and ammonium chloride is obtained. But when chlorine is treated, when ammonia is treated with excess chlorine, here this chlorine is treated with excess ammonia, but here ammonia treated with excess chlorine, just reverse the same thing. This also you have learned at page number 60 in the same unit. So you can revise, you can compare both the reaction while you are learning. When ammonia treated with the chlorine, you are getting the product called to be nitrogen trichloride, which is explosive. That also I had explained there. So here this HCl formed further react with NH3 to give you ammonium chloride. Now we are going to sum up these two. So this HCl and HCl get cancelled. Here 3 ammonia, 1 ammonia, that is 4 ammonia plus 3 Cl to give you nitrogen trichloride plus ammonium chloride is obtained. Next, this chlorine reacts with hydrogen sulfide and get converted into sulfur. Likewise, this chlorine reacts with potassium bromide, and get converted into bromine. Likewise, reacts with potassium iodide and get converted into iodine. So these are the some of the chemical properties of this chlorine. Reaction with alkali. Chlorine reacts with cold alkali as well as hot concentrated alkali. So when it reacts with the cold alkali, the product will be sodium chloride as well as sodium hypochlorite. Chlorite will be obtained. But when it is react with a hot concentrated alkali, the product is different. One is the common product like sodium chloride. The other one is called to be sodium chlorate. Before one I said with the dilute sodium hypochlorite ITE, but here sodium chlorate, that is ATE. So let's see how these reactions occur. So I have taken first the cold alkali. When chlorine reacts with the cold alkali, first the chlorine is dissolved in water. So you are getting the product called to be, that is aqueous chlorine. You will get hydrochloric acid and OHCl. Then this OHCl formed. Then first step, this HCl reacts with NaOH, gives NaCl, that's one product. The other one, this OHCl formed, further reacts with NaOH and gets the product called to be NaOCl plus H2O. Now you can add these 3 reactions, that is actually NaOH dissolved into, or aqueous NaOH dissolved into the chlorine. That's the total reaction, but that was written in a 3 steps. First, the chlorine with water gets you 2 product. Those 2 products separately reacts with NaOH, everything taken place in the same container. So the product obtained are called to be this. Now when we add all these are taken place in the same container. So we are going to delete the things which are present at the reactant side and the product side. So here the reactant side hydrochloric acid, product side hydrochloric acid, I am cancelling that. Then the reactant side Cl2 remains here because there is no Cl2 at the product side. Cl2 plus how many NaOH here, 1 NaOH, another NaOH, 2 NaOH. I just cancelled HCl Now I'm going to cancel OHCl. Another one, the water molecule. Reactant side 1 water molecule, the product side 2 water molecules. I am cancelling 1 water. So the here reactant side Cl2 plus 2 NaOH. All other 3 things we cancelled. And the product side we just cancelled already these 2. Then 1 water molecule. The remaining is NaCl, NaOCl plus water molecule. This NaOCl is called to be sodium hypochlorite, ITE. Okay. So if we are taking potassium hydroxide, you will get the product called to be potassium hypochlorite. So with the cold alkali, the chlorine gives the product called to be hypochlorite. Let's see with the hot alkali what are the products are obtained. So here the same reaction Cl2 plus H2O give you HCl plus OHCl, and then that HCl again react with NaOH. Here the product is NaCl and water. This OHCl reacts with NaOH, giving the product NaOCl plus H2O. But here as it is a concentrated hot alkali NaOH, the reaction is very faster, as well as the reaction the product is entirely different. The NaOCl, here 3 steps involved, there only 3 steps, but here the 4th step is another 4th step. One of the product formed, that is sodium hypochlorite, formed as unstable. It decomposed to give you sodium chlorate. So that is another product. So we are going to sum up all the 4 things. When we sum up it, to balance that I have multiplied this with 3, 3, 3. So that's in 3Cl2 plus 3H2O gives 3HCl plus 3OHCl, and this one 3HCl plus everything you can multiply like that. Then you can see that there are 3 into 3, 3Cl2, and the common thing we can cancel it out. Here NaOH, 3 NaOH, here to 3 NaOH, I have 6 NaOH gives NaClO3 plus NaCl plus 3 water molecule, because here 3 water molecule and 1 3 water molecule get cancelled. So the final product is Cl2 plus 6 NaOH gives NaClO3 plus NaCl plus 3H2O. So there are 2 different products obtained. With the cold alkali, the product is hypochlorite. With the hot alkali, the product obtained is sodium chlorate is the product obtained. Next, about the oxidizing and bleaching action. That is, this chlorine can be very good bleaching agent, and it bleaches, and the bleaching action is permanent. So let's see how it acts as a bleach and why it acts as a bleach. When chlorine dissolved into water, you know the product obtained is hydrochloric acid and this OHCl, that is hypochlorous acid, and it decomposed to give you further hydrochloric acid plus oxygen, which is nascent oxygen, that is atomic oxygen. You know, it's highly reactive. Because of that oxygen, it can act as an oxidizing agent. Oxidizing agent means something which undergo reduction is called as oxidizing agent. In terms of oxygen reduction, as removal of oxygen is called as the reduction. If it is an oxidizing agent, make the other one to undergo this undergo reduction, the other one to undergo the oxidation. Here when ferrous chloride Fe plus 2 Cl minus ferrous chloride treated with chlorine, it get converted into ferric chloride. So here this ferrous chloride converted into ferric chloride is a process oxidation, plus 2 oxidation state converted into plus 3 oxidation state. So it undergo oxidation. So here the another one again, when chlorine treated with water, you will get HCl and OHCl. So when this from HCl and OHCl, the OHCl part treated with ferrous sulfate, in the presence of sulfuric acid, ferrous sulfate is converted into ferric sulfate. Ferrous where oxidation state plus 2, ferric its oxidation state is plus 3. The byproduct is HCl plus the water molecule. So I am going to add these 2 reactions where some things are common, where this side the product OHCl, here the OHCl, both get cancelled, and here the water molecule, right side the water molecule get cancelled. The remaining will be FeSO4, H2SO4 plus Cl2 gives Fe2SO4 thrice plus this 2HCl, this HCl and this HCl, 2HCl is formed. So this is one reaction which proves the oxidizing nature of that. Another one, Cl2 treated with water molecule, it get converted into HCl and OHCl. That is the first reaction. So now they have taken sodium sulfite, IT, sodium sulfite. When it treated with this OHCl, it get converted to sodium sulfate. Sulfite is getting converted into sulfate plus HCl. So here when you sum up these two, OHCl, OHCl get cancelled. The remaining is Na2SO3 plus H2O plus Cl2 gives Na2SO4 plus 2HCl, these two HCl. So the next, this reaction already we have studied under the affinity of hydrogen. Chlorine have a greater affinity towards the compound having hydrogen. When chlorine reacts with the hydrogen sulfide, take away the hydrogen with that, so that HCl will be formed, sulfur will be coming out. So these are the reactions which proves the oxidizing as well as the bleaching action of this chlorine. Preparation of bleaching powder, you know the formula of bleaching powder, which is CaOCl2. It can be obtained from calcium hydroxide. Calcium hydroxide can be called as slack lime. The formula for slack lime is CaOH twice. When the CaOH twice is treated with the chlorine, and you get the product called to be CaOCl2, which is called as the bleaching powder. Next, about the displacement redox reaction. So what is displacement redox reaction? Displacement means one atom will be displaced. There is a displacement reaction, double displacement reaction. So this can be an example of displacement reaction, where from KBr, Br is removed in the place of Br, where chlorine will join, and it can be a displacement redox reaction. So redox reaction means the reaction in which both oxidation and reduction takes place simultaneously is called as the redox reaction. So let me consider the second. Both the equations are redox reaction. So I am taking the example of second, where chlorine in its elementary state the oxidation number is said to be 0. So for both the chlorine its oxidation number is 0, and for potassium you know its oxidation number +1 for both, and bromine it is -1, and iodine also it's -1. Now it give you the product called to be KCl. This become K +1 and Cl -1. In the elementary state, bromine also 0, iodine also 0. So I have written the oxidation state of all the elements present in both the equation. Now I am going to consider this chlorine to this chlorine, where in this reactant side chlorine its oxidation number 0, but the product side chlorine its oxidation number -1. So it shows this chlorine it gains 1 electron. When it gains electron, it carry the negative charge, that is -1. So gain of electron is called to be the reduction. But come to iodine, where its oxidation number -1, and at the iodine product side it's 0. So here it had extra electron, that electron it lost and it go as a 0. So loss of electron is called as oxidation. So this iodine to iodine is oxidation, this chlorine to chlorine is called to be reduction. So in a reaction where both oxidation and reduction takes place simultaneously, so we can call it as a redox reaction, as well as it can be a displacement. From this bromine is displaced and chlorine is getting added. So this is called to be displacement redox reaction. Formation of addition compound. This chlorine just go on add into some of the reactant to give you the addition compound. Here there are examples: sulfur dioxide, carbon monoxide. So in sulfur dioxide, when chlorine is added, you are getting added, you are getting the product called to be sulfuryl chloride. Likewise, carbon monoxide, when it is treated with Cl2, you are getting the product called to be carbonyl chloride, or it can be called to be phosgene. The other one here, ethene, that is CH2 double bond CH2 double bond CH2, or you can say it is C2H4. So it can be, IUPAC's name is ethene, or the common name is ethylene. To ethylene, when chlorine is added, it get just added, double bond breaks, out of two bond between carbon and carbon, one bond break, and this chlorine will go on join at both the carbon. So you get the product called to be CH2 single bond Cl single bond CH2 Cl. That's what C2H4 Cl2. The name is ethylene dichloride. The other one, it can form an addition compound as well as it can form a substitution product. Substitution means instead of one atom, here nothing is eliminated from that, just went and added, so it is called as addition. But here this is called to be a substitution, because one atom from methane is replaced, the hydrogen is replaced and getting substituted by chlorine. So you get the product called to be CH3Cl plus HCl. Likewise, benzene when treated with the chlorine in the presence of a catalyst called to be ferrichloride, one hydrogen atom will be getting substituted by chlorine. So you get the product called to be C6H5Cl plus HCl. Uses of chlorine. The first one, it can be used for purification of drinking water. You know, this chlorine, when it is added to the water, it will kill the microorganisms, bacteria, virus and other things which is present in the water. In particular, this chlorination is used to prevent the spread of waterborne diseases like cholera, dysentery, typhoid, everything can be prevented when we chlorinate the water. So by that way we can purify the drinking water. This chlorine can be used to purify the drinking water. Second one, bleaching cotton, textile, paper and rayon. Already we studied, because it produces a nascent oxygen, it can act as a very good bleaching agent. So it can act as an oxidizing agent as well as it has a bleaching action, and this bleach can act as a permanent. The bleaching of chlorine is said to be permanent. So here some examples. Then extraction of gold and platinum. Gold and platinum can be extracted, while during the extraction this chlorine can be used for extracting gold and platinum. These three are the uses of chlorine. Good morning students. Today we are going to learn about group 18 elements. Group 18 elements are helium, neon, argon, krypton, xenon and radon. And radon is a radioactive element. So this group 18 elements are otherwise called as noble gases, or it is said to be the inert gases. So in this video, let's see what are the different compounds of these noble gases, what are the physical and chemical properties, as well as the specific uses of all the noble gases. First, let's see about the occurrence and general physical properties of noble gases. Normally, these noble gases occur in the atmosphere, where radon is a radioactive element. All other elements are non-radioactive. But when we move from left to right in a periodic table, as you all know that the ionization energy will increases. So, the extreme end of the periodic table, the elements present in are called to be the noble gases. So the noble gases will have the higher ionization energy, and then this noble gases are helium, neon, argon, krypton, xenon and radon. Normally we can call it as a noble gases or inert gases. Why do these elements occur these name? Because these are the happiest element ever in chemistry, I think, because no need to combine with anybody else, because already it has a stable electronic configuration. Due to its stable electronic configuration, it will not be reactive to any other elements. Then when you move from top to down, as usual, the atomic radius will increases. Likewise, the boiling point from helium to radon, when you compare the boiling point, it will steady increases. So the atomic radius increases, melting point increases, as well as the density. When you move from helium to radon, there will be a steady increase in the radius as well as all other else. Physical properties of noble gases. These noble gases are monoatomic. You all know, whenever we represent these elements, we will represent it as He, Ne, Ar, Kr, Xe, Rn. Because if I write like oxygen, we will be writing O2, it's diatomic. Phosphorus we will be writing P4, that is tetraatomic. Sulfur we will be writing S8, that is octaatomic. But here this is said to be monoatomic because it's unreactive. It is existing in nature as Ne. Second one, it is odorless, it will not have any smell. Third one, it is colorless. And then fourth, it is tasteless. And fifth one, it is non-inflammable. And sixth one, it is unreactive. Already we said it has a stable electronic configuration, because the general electronic configuration of noble gases are Ns2, Np6. All the outermost orbitals are completely filled, hence it will not react with the other elements. The next one, it's non-metallic. You know, in the periodic table, element present at the extreme right end are called to be the non-metallic. So here the right extreme elements are these noble gases. So these are non-metallic. Out of all the elements like helium, neon, argon, krypton and xenon, only xenon and krypton show some chemical reactivity. We said in the beginning it's highly unreactive, non-reactive because it has a stable configuration. But out of these elements, xenon and krypton show some chemical reactivity. So xenon, what are the chemical reaction occur? It was explained here that xenon fluoride compounds are obtained by treating, that is by the direct combination of xenon and fluorine. When xenon treated with 1 mole of fluorine in the presence of nickel and where the temperature maintained is 400 degrees Celsius. So if you want to convert, you can add 273, so it will be 673 Kelvin. So when xenon plus 1 mole of fluorine, you get the compound called to be xenon difluoride. So xenon difluoride, the shape is said to be linear. So 2 bond pair, here 1 bond pair, another bond pair, 2 bond pair and 3 lone pairs are present. Due to the repulsion of bond pair and lone pair, the structure is said to be linear. Another one, when xenon treated with 2 mole of fluorine in the presence of nickel and acetone, here the condition differs where the nickel and 400 degrees Celsius, but here nickel with acetone at the same temperature 400 degrees Celsius, it's getting converted into xenon tetrafluoride. So let's see about the xenon tetrafluoride. It form 4 bond pair, that is 1 XCF, another 2, 3 and 4 and 2 lone pair of electron present at the top and bottom, and the shape is said to be the square planar. The shape of the xenon tetrafluoride is square planar. Next one, when xenon treated with 3 mole of fluorine, you are getting the compound called to be xenon hexafluoride, but the condition is nickel instead of acetone. Here we are maintaining 200 atmospheric pressure, but the temperature is same 400 degrees Celsius. The product obtained is xenon hexafluoride, and the xenon hexafluoride, its shape is said to be distorted octahedron. So seems to be octahedron. Why it's distorted octahedron? Because there is 1 lone pair of electron present that, and its hybridization is sp3d3. If it is sp3d2, we'll have a without lone pair of electron, we can call it as a octahedral shape, but here the hybridization is sp3d3, so the shape is said to be distorted octahedron. Next, the action of heat. The xenon hexafluoride formed is heated with quartz vessel. So quartz vessel is nothing but quartz is silica. So when XeF6 heated at the temperature of 50 degrees Celsius with the silica, the product obtained is called to be xenon oxytetrafluoride. So the xenon oxytetrafluoride is, the shape is said to be square pyramidal. So by xenon bonded with 4 fluorine atom and 1 oxygen atom is bonded, double bond oxygen, and 1 lone pair of electron is present at the top. So the shape is said to be square pyramidal. Here from fluorine, 2 fluorine atom is replaced, instead that 1 oxygen atom is getting substituted. But this product which formed, that is xenon oxytetrafluoride, further reacts with the silica and get converted into where the fluorine atom, 2 fluorine atom is replaced and 1 oxygen atom is further getting substituted. You get the product called to be xenon dioxydifluoride. Byproduct is same, silicon tetrafluoride, where xenon dioxydifluoride, the shape is said to be triconal bipyramidal. So shape is triconal bipyramidal. And the xenon dioxydifluoride further reacts with the silica to give you xenon trioxide. Xenon trioxide formula is XeO3. So Xe bonded with 3 oxygen atom, and XeO3, its shape is said to be pyramidal in shape, and where 1 lone pair of electron is present near the xenon. This is about the action of heat on xenon hexafluoride with quartz. Next, about the hydrolysis of xenon hexafluoride. Even a small drop of water, little amount of water can hydrolyze the xenon hexafluoride. When xenon hexafluoride is hydrolyzed, it get converted into xenon trioxide. So here the oxides of xenon compound, xenon trioxide, xenon oxytetroxide, xenon dioxydifluoride, where we are getting the final product is xenon trioxide. Though we hydrolyze xenon tetrafluoride or xenon hexafluoride, the product obtained is said to be xenon trioxide. And this xenon trioxide is a colorless explosive solid and has a pyramidal in shape. Reaction with NaOH. When xenon hexafluoride reacts with 2.5 molar sodium hydroxide, sodium perxenate is obtained. So let's see the reaction. You know, xenon hexafluoride, the formula is XeF6. When it reacts with 2.5 molar concentration of sodium hydroxide, it get converted into Na4XeO6. This is called as sodium perxenate. And when we ionize this, you will get 4Na++ XeO6 4-. So here there is the ionic form of perxenate is given, XeO6 4-, 1 2 3 4. This 4- charge only neutralized by adding Na+4 cation. Plus xenon is released as well as oxygen, and the byproduct is sodium fluoride as well as 8 molecular water is obtained. This perxenate is a very good strong oxidizing agent, that is XeO6 4-. You know, so many oxidizing agent in this lesson you have studied, as well as you are familiar with potassium permanganate is a very good oxidizing agent. Potassium dichromate is a very good oxidizing agent. Likewise, here this perxenate can also be a very good oxidizing agent. So here its formula is XeO6 4-. That's the ionic state. Oxidizing agent means something which undergo reduction. Reduction means removal of oxygen. So here XeO6 get converted into XeO3. So how many oxygen is getting released? 3 oxygen is getting released. Those will go on join with H+ as well as Mn2+. Now let's see that here in sense of Mn2+, here it is losing oxygen, and oxygen is gained by whom? The manganese. So oxygen is getting addition of oxygen is called as oxidation. So this undergo oxidation and this undergo the reduction. This is one way in terms of oxygen. But in terms of electron, we can see that manganese, its oxidation number, it's given, that is +2. But manganese tetroxide, this ion, you can calculate the oxidation number. This will be X plus 4 into -2, that is -8 equal to -1. So X will be equal to +7. So here the positive charges increases from left to right. The positive charges increases means it's to be oxidation. So that was proved because of this perxenate. This Mn2+ is getting converted into Mn4-. So it can be a very good oxidizing agent. The xenon react with platinum hexafluoride and gives an orange yellow solid called to be XePtF6. So xenon platinum fluoride complex is obtained. Then likewise, when xenon treated with antimony pentafluoride, that is SpF5, it get converted into a addition compound called to be XeF2.SbF5 is obtained. Likewise, when xenon difluoride reacts with tantalum pentafluoride, Ta, tantalum pentafluoride, it again give you the addition product of XeF2.2TaF5. Likewise, when xenon hexafluoride treated with boron trifluoride, BF3, you get the product again, one more addition product called to be XeF6.BF3. Likewise, when xenon hexafluoride reacts with the metallic fluorides, that is, and especially alkali metals. Alkali metals, you know that sodium, potassium, rubidium, cesium, francium and all those alkali metallic fluoride gets the addition product called to be XeF6.MF. And this xenon, this complex, xenon platinate complex will be a yellow, orange yellow solid, and it is insoluble in carbon tetrachloride, it seems. Then other than xenon difluoride, there can be an evidence for xenon dichloride compound also can be existing, it seems. So this is about the compounds of xenons. Till now we were seeing about the xenon compound, how it reacts, all those. Now let's see about the krypton. What are the compound obtained by krypton? The krypton form krypton difluoride. Krypton difluoride formula will be KrF2. So krypton form krypton difluoride when an electric discharge is passed through krypton and fluorine and the temperature maintained is 183 degrees Celsius. Or when gases are irradiated, gases means krypton difluorides or irradiated with antimony pentafluoride. This can also give you another addition product called to be KrF2.2SbF3. That is the trifluoride of this antimony will join with this krypton difluoride. Just we are going to learn about the structure of xenon compounds. So we know the xenon compounds can be XeF2. So here there is a correction in the textbook. So you can make a correction there. So this will be XeF2, okay, not F. So XeF2. So XeF2, XeF4, XeF6, XeOF2, XeOF4, XeO3. These are the compounds of xenon where its hybridization is given, as well as the shape of all those things are given. So you know how to calculate the hybridization. Here just I am going to explain only one example, that is XeF4. Using that you can do it for all other examples, okay. So here xenon I have taken. Xenon, its ground state electronic configuration is 5s2 5p6. You know that helium 1s2 and neon 2s2 2p6 and argon 3s2. Likewise you can come one by one. When it come xenon, it is 5s2 5p6. So I have represented 5s2 5p6 fully. But the xenon is making a bond with 4 covalent bond with the fluorine atom. So there should be 4 unpaired electron in that, but there is no unpaired electron in this. Hence it undergo the excited state, that is the electron present in the py orbital, and pz orbital will go to the nearby orbit called to be the orbital called to be 5d orbital. When these two electron excited to the 5d orbital, now we are getting 4 unpaired electron in these. After the 4 unpaired electron is formed, it will undergo a hybridization. So here S orbital, P3 orbital and D2 orbital undergo hybridization. So you are getting the hybridization of sp3d2. For xenon tetrafluoride, it undergo the hybridization of sp3d2. So you know that 4 covalent bonds. So 4 bond pair is formed. Other 2 electron, you know, in the 5s orbital 1 lone pair of electron and 5px orbital another lone pair of electron. One lone pair will at one extreme and another lone pair in another extreme end, because you know LP repulsion is maximum. Lone pair repulsion is maximum. So those two will go up and down. Now you are getting the shape called to be the square planar shape, okay. So likewise you can try to do the calculate the hybridization for all the molecules. So let's see what are the shapes as well as how many lone pair, how many bond pair are present. In XeF2 oxidation state of xenon is given. Next is bond pair, okay. So bond pair of XeF2 2 bond pair, and this is 4 bond pair, this is 6 bond pair, and this is 6 bond pair, because xenon make a double bond with one oxygen. So there are 3 oxygen, so there are 6 bond pair, and here 2 single bond and 2 double bond, so totally 6, and here too you can measure like that. Likewise how many bond pair, how many lone pair, and what are the total given. Then its shape linear, square, planar, distorted, octahedral, pyramidal, and all the shapes are given. So the shapes diagrams are here in a linear shape, that is xenon up and down there are 2 bond F and F, and these 3 are lone pair of electron, and xenon this is square planar, up and down there are lone pair. Likewise all the structures are explained, you can go through it clearly. Let us learn the uses of all the noble gases. First about the helium. So helium and oxygen mixture is used by deep sea divers, that is deep sea divers in place of air and oxygen mixture. So air and oxygen mixture is nothing but nitrogen and oxygen mixture. In the olden days they were using the deep sea divers were carrying the mixture of nitrogen and oxygen mixture, but it was because using that mixture, this brought a dangerous condition called as bends. After they come out of the sea after diving, when they come out of the sea surface, they will be having a bends. That let's see what is meant by bends. That bends is nothing but it's a syndrome of joint pain, numbness, you know about numbness, or paralysis and other symptoms caused by the release of gas dissolved in tissues, which forms bubbles in the blood upon surfacting after a scuba dive. After the scuba dive, when they come out of the surface, so they will be having these many disorders. So bubbles forming in tissues near joint cause the pain of classical bends. So the pains at the tissues as well as the joints, that is what called to be the bends. So let's see why these bends are arrived. So when the deep sea divers are at the surface, approx 0 meters, their pressure is 1 atmospheric pressure. When they are going down, that is approximately about 10 meter, the pressure is getting increased to 2 atmospheric pressure. So they have a cylinder in which it was before it was filled with nitrogen and oxygen. When that was inhaled, the lungs will be collecting the oxygen as well as nitrogen. This oxygen and nitrogen collected will pass into the tissues, where the nitrogen moves from the high pressure into the lungs into the blood. From the lungs it goes to the blood. When they come up the surface, that is when they move quickly at the top of the surface, the nitrogen gas which came into our tissues, actually it has to be recollected. It has to be sent out, which we do not need. It has to come out. While it may not able to come very smoothly. So where instead of it can form a painful bubbles will be formed on the body. So but when you come slowly on the upper surface, it can be prevented. So because of that issues only, now they are using a thing called to be helium and oxygen mixture. The another use is helium is used to provide inert atmosphere in electric arc welding of metals. In so many reactions we normally use the noble gases, inert atmosphere will be maintaining. Here in particular, helium is used in electric arc welding. Another one, because of its low boiling point, it can be used in cryogenics, normally rocket engine as well as so many cryogenic surgery, low temperature surgeries, etc., where they will be using this helium gas. Another one, it is very much less denser than air, hence it is used in the filling of air balloons. So these are the uses of helium. Next, about the uses of neon. This neon is used in advertisement as neon sign, and the brilliant red glow used cast by passing electric current through the neon gas under the low pressure. So let's see, this is neon used for advertisement. So many areas you can find it on the road and hotels and so many areas with the neon light, they will be using it for the advertisement purpose. So here they by using the electric current, neon gas glow low pressure. Now this is see that how this light is glowing. So here the neon gas is filled in the test tube. When it was connected to passing the electric current, it glowing with a reddish color flame. Uses of argon. It prevents the oxidation of hot filament and prolong the life in the filament bulbs. So when argon is filled in the filament bulb, it prevents the oxidation due to oxygen present. If the oxygen present, it undergo the tungsten may undergo the oxidation. To avoid that, it can be filled with the argon gas. Uses of krypton, used in fluorescent bulb, flash bulbs, etc. And lamp filled with krypton are used in airport as approaching light, as they can penetrate even through the dense fog. Because in airport the light setup will be made by this krypton gas. You can see that surface. So the approaching flight can able to see the path where it has to be landed, etc. Next, about the uses of xenon. It's fluorescent bulb, flash bulb and lasers. Then it emits an intense light in discharge tube instantly. Due to this, it's used as a high-speed electronic flash bulbs used by photographers. In so many, even car light, this is the xenon bulb. So likewise in so many areas it can be used. Uses of radon. Radon, you know, it's a radioactive element and it is used as a source for gamma rays. The other one, radon gas is sealed as a small capsule which is implanted in the body to destroy the malignant, that is the cancer cell can be destroyed by using this radon. But nowadays it is not advisable because it cannot able to, like, specifically if the a tablet is implanted in a improper place, it may kill the normal tissues, normal cell also it will destroy, it seems, from the body. Hence, as well as there will be a leakage, there is a possibility of leakage of radon gas. So nowadays it's not in under use, but it can be used to kill the cancer growth. So this is about the radon.